of membership of NATO, but some countries are more reluctant to see Georgia join NATO, notably Germany and France. What do you say today to French and German leaders in a few words?
Listen, we're talking about Western values, and I can understand the concerns that nobody wants open war or conflict, open conflict with Russia. I have no illusions about that. But you must remember the fact that we have 500,000 refugees here. This is the same scale as Bosnia and Darfur. Is Putin going to escape from his responsibility? Is he going to be exonerated for this? And saying, okay, well, he's a little bit brutal, but, you know, there's nothing to do about it, and so forth. I mean, despite it all, there are values of Western civilization, democratic values, that are much more important than any pragmatic consideration of, you know, the present time. And I think that, including Mrs. Merkel and President Sarkozy, understand that very well.
The ceasefire agreements of last year have not been complied with. Russia has not withdrawn from Abkhazia and South Ossetia, and yet Europe has relaunched its efforts to improve relations with Russia, and Russia and NATO have also been talking to each other, and the Russians and the Americans are trying to effect a rapprochement. So isn't Georgia being sacrificed for the sake of realpolitik?
No, I don't think so. They did succeed in warming up relations, but we can have we must have a relationship with Russia. It's obvious for us. But at the same time, we must protect the principles of Europe. And both are compatible. These are both possible together. But at this point in time, we are in this line of confrontation with Russia, who are as aggressive as they usually are. The Russians who have seen that they can cross that line, they can indeed go way too far without any sanction, any real sanction whatsoever, and they've done that. So the only thing that's very important now is to avoid this continuing. And afterwards, I hope, with the diplomatic process and normal development of this region, we'll be able to reverse the effects of the ethnic cleansing.
You have been much criticized in your own country, last spring in particular, where there were a lot of demonstrations. A lot of people criticized the way you conducted the war with Russia and have asked for your resignation. Do you think you will go to the end of your mandate in 2013?
Obviously. I mean, that's why these demonstrations actually did show that democracy is alive and well in Georgia. Very effective. But there is a debate in our society today. But at the same despite all of the pressure, a very strong pressure indeed, there are people that hate me, and that's perfectly normal. But there is a minority.
Have you thought of resigning?
You have to be realistic.
Have you thought of resigning?
I did resign once. I resigned. And why did I resign?
Have you thought of resigning recently?
No, not at all. When I did resign, I did that to show that after all of the very difficult reforms that we'd undertaken, I had to have a new mandate on the part of society.
And after the war?
We have no plans to enable Russia to change our interior politics or our electoral calendar because they went to war. If you give that card to Mr. Putin, he'll enter into more provocative exercises, and there'll be a conflict every time he wants something. And, no, I think that you have to separate these two things.
One last question. We have understood that you're not going to resign, you're going to complete your second mandate, but the Georgian constitution doesn't allow you to stand for a third mandate. Have you thought about your future?
First of all, my immediate concern right now is that Georgia survive. through this period. If this is the case, if Georgia does survive, the most effective response to the international pressure and the threat, this ferocious threat, would be to change the Constitution under constitutional terms, under the terms of the Constitution, and say, now I'm leaving. I mean, this is based on our internal rules. It's not based on what you want. It's based on our Constitution. I understand the logic of change that does exist to transform the whole region. And when the region does get transformed, it will be a help to Georgia as well. It's not a question of just recovering land. It's a question of becoming a normal country where all ethnic groups are representative and where there are no more displaced persons and where this type of tragedy will be excluded from this region.
Mr. President, thank you for this interview.